Let me quickly introduce you.
Yeah,
You ready?
sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Hey guys, we're about to start. Thank you for being here. This is Nikolas, right? He's going to talk about how to start, grow, and advance in your career in information security. He can tell more about himself, but long story short, he's a consultant, professor, speaker, red team leader. He has OSCP and CISSP. That's a lot of achievements, man.
Not really.
You're only missing the certified ethical hacker.
That one's not worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, thanks for being here. Let's see what you got.
All right, can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay. So hey everyone, I'm Nico. Good to meet you. So I'm going to be giving the talk about starting, advancing, and growing your career in InfoSec. So a few things we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about job roles. We're going to talk about certifications. We're going to talk about skill building, community involvement, which is why I'm here, and job search strategies, which is very important. So a little bit about me. This is the only slide about me, I promise, and I'll go through it fast. So red team manager at a tech company, also a professor at the University of San Diego, chapter leader for OWASP San Diego. I go to a lot of cons, so one of my goals for this year was to go to 12, one a month, and I'm going to be at 14 by the end of the year. What else? Oh yeah, recovering consultant, obviously, and here to help. So why am I giving this talk? There's a lot of interests in the information security fields. That's why we're all here, I assume. And people aren't really aware of all of the different things that you can do in information security. There's a misconception that you can't learn these things on your own, but you definitely can. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how to do that. Another misconception, you do not need to know how to code to be in this field. Okay, so if you think you need to know how to code to be in this field, that's not true, and we'll look at that. So there's a constant like, oh, there's 100,000 or whatever unfilled jobs in InfoSec, right? So there are, but there's just not enough people with the skills to fill them. That is why they're not being filled. And so hopefully we can get you guys on the right track, and then provide a path for you guys to accelerate your career. So first, we'll discuss different areas in the cybersecurity field based on the NICE framework. So a quick show of hands, how many of you are familiar with the NICE framework? Okay, a few of you. Then we'll go over available certifications, community involvement, skill building, so building labs. And we'll also talk about how to use ChatGPT to improve your resume, very important. All right, so this is the cyber career pathways diagram that's put out by DHS and NICE. So yeah, different areas, and we're going to talk about a few different specific job roles. So they have IT, cybersecurity, cyber effects, cyber intelligence, and intelligence. Then you can see at the bottom, those are the less technical jobs, which we'll also talk about. So lifecycle management, talent management, strategic management. Okay, so the first part of the talk, I'm going to start out with the help desk technician, and I'm going to talk about the things that help desk is doing that are security related and how you can leverage those things on your resume to move to the next level. So we'll do that for a few different roles, and then we'll move on to the rest of the talk. So IT support specialist, also known as a help desk or service analyst. So they're providing technical support to customers, right? So somebody will call in or they'll file a ticket and then they'll respond to that ticket. Believe it or not, these guys and gals are the first line of defense when it comes to somebody reporting an incident. So if somebody's computer is acting funny, right? They're going to pick up the phone and they're going to call the help desk and they're going to say, hey, my computer's running slow, right? And then it's going to be the help desk's job to figure it out, maybe run a malware scan. They're going to be the first ones to say, hey, maybe this person has a security incident in the making. So some related certifications. So the Google IT certification is great, A+, any Active Directory certifications. So you've been working in this role for a little bit. You worked with Active Directory, you've worked with EDR, you've worked with various ticketing systems, and so now you're ready for your next role. So you're not sure what to apply for, so you can take some of the security-related tasks that you're doing in this job, so including analyzing incident data, administering accounts, performing asset management-related activities, right? So who knows what the most important thing in security is? asset management, right? Because if we don't know what we have, we don't know what we're protecting, right? So you're already, as a help desk analyst, extremely important to the organization. You're the person that people are going to call as a security incident may be unfolding, and you're also one of the first line of defense for making sure that all our assets are accounted for, which is really important. So yeah,
they're also extremely susceptible. They are extremely susceptible to social engineering.
That's right. Extremely susceptible to social engineering. The MGM hack and the Caesars hack. Call the help desk, and that's how they got in, right? So you can also talk about how, hey, some malicious actors tried to call me, I identified it, called it out, and I successfully stopped a ransomware attack, right? So that's definitely something you can put on your resume. So after help desk, the natural move is going to be to go to a system administrator, and this job can vary widely, right? So these definitions, these are directly from NICE. So some of the things you're going to be doing is setting up servers, installing systems, maintaining baselines, dealing with backups, restoring backups, making sure that they're good, implementing certain security controls, right? So you're doing a whole bunch of security related things already. Like patching, maintaining baselines, user accounts, right? So those are all the security related things that you're doing. It's really, really important that when you're doing your job or when you're applying for a job, that you think about what the security related things that you're doing, right? Because even somebody working in customer support, like for a product, they're doing security related things as well. So even if you're coming from the bottom, right, all the way up, you're always going to be doing security things, whether you realize it or not. And so some alternate job titles here. So network administrator, security administrator, or Linux or Windows administrator, right? So this job, you're helping configure the systems so that they're secure, right? So maybe CIS top 18 or STIX if you're working for the government. And then so once we've been in this job and we're looking to move up, we could potentially apply for a security analyst role, vulnerability management, perhaps an incident response analyst, information security analyst, or cybersecurity analyst, right? So whenever you see any of these job titles, they're all the same, right? So just because you see something that says analyst doesn't mean anything. You should always click on it and you should always read the job description, because I know there are analyst roles paying $60,000 a year and there are analyst roles paying $250,000 a year. So just because it says cybersecurity analyst or senior analyst, you should still click on it and see what the job actually does. So cyber defense analyst, according to NICE, so they're going to be doing a variety of things, including looking at alerts, right? So this is basically a SOC analyst. So you're going to be looking at different alerts that are coming out of different tools and determining whether or not it's something that you want to investigate further. So alternate job titles, right? Security analyst, cybersecurity analyst, SOC analyst, right? So it's really important that you read the job description, because the job description is going to tell you what you're doing. It could be called technology analyst, it could be called security analyst. Really important that we read the job description when we're looking at jobs. So yeah, certifications, which we'll talk about: Security Plus, CYSA, GSEC. So you've been in this role, you've been a SOC analyst, you've been a cyber defense analyst. Now you could potentially move into vulnerability management, becoming an engineer, or threat intelligence. So vulnerability assessment analyst, right? So you're going out, you're conducting scans, you're seeing what's in the environment, you're making sure patching systems are working, you're making sure that we don't have any critical vulnerabilities, and if we do, that they're getting addressed, and you're checking to make sure that things are working and the countermeasures are there, and recommending different ones when they are needed. So alternate job titles, right? Vulnerability analyst, vulnerability management, vulnerability management analyst, information security engineer, right? So it's, as I mentioned, really important to read the job description. And then potential next role: security engineer, pen tester, AppSec. So threat intel analyst. So here you're going to be going through a bunch of different pieces of information, sorting through it. And so who knows what the difference is between information and intelligence? So information is just that, it's information. And so it becomes intelligence once it becomes actionable. So you read that information and now you say, okay, I'm going to go out and do something with this information. So that is intelligence. Information that is actionable, that you can act upon once you get it. information does not give you anything to act upon. Really, really important to note that difference. So here you're going to be doing a lot of writing. You're going to be doing a lot of research. You could be doing public speaking, right? You're going to tailor your message to different audiences. It could be board level. It could be other engineers. It could be all across the board, right? So you have to be a good communicator. And alternate job titles, right? Threat analyst, intel analyst, security analyst, right? Which I mentioned can mean a whole bunch of different things. Information security analyst. And then after this, you can move on to threat hunting, detection engineering, which we had a talk on before this, cybersecurity engineer, information security analyst. So we've talked a lot about technical roles up until this point. There are also non-technical roles, which are just as important. So raise your hand if you think a CISO, most CISOs come up as security engineers. Correct. Most of them come up as auditors, things like that, or GRC analysts, because at the end of the day, that's what they're doing. They're maintaining the program. They're making sure things are working. They're not there hands on keyboard checking to see if things are being patched. They're running the entire program. So an auditor, so I used to do that. Okay, it's not that great. It's kind of boring actually, but super important, right? Because once you do this, then you understand what should be in an information security program. So you're going to be going into an organization. You'll be looking at their systems, at their information security program, and you're going to make sure that it aligns to a rule or a regulation that they have to comply with. So PCI DSS, HIPAA, ISO, NIST, etc. So here you're going to leverage project management, data analysis, right? It's really important that you have communication skills and that you're able to communicate technical concepts to laymen and laywomen, right? We want to make sure that we're able to communicate these things so that they get remediated. Because if we go in there and we say, dude, I totally just owned your box and you need to do something about it. If not, the lead hackers are going to come and they're not going to understand what you're saying. So you have to be able to explain things in layman terms. Really, really important when you're getting into the non-technical jobs. After you're doing an auditor job, you can move up to a compliance manager, technical program manager, an information security manager. Really lots of options with this. It could also be a project or program manager. So you're going to manage and integrate the overall success of a particular program. So it could be like IAM, or if the organization is smaller, it could be the whole information security program. And some alternate job titles, right? Cybersecurity manager, information security manager, technical project manager. You're really just managing program, making sure everything's happening, making sure people are doing their work, but you're still very much in security because you have to know what needs to get done in order to get things across the finish line. And so after this, sky's the limit. You could be a director, you could be director of audit, you can make your way up to CISO, as I mentioned. So yeah, you could do a lot of things after this, right? It's just sky's the limit. You decide what you want to do. Okay, so we've talked enough about job roles. Now we're going to talk about certifications. Raise your hand if you have a certification. Okay, so most people have certifications here. Which certifications do we have? Shout them out. No one has any? Security Plus. Okay.
Cybersecurity.
Okay, AWS. Okay, cool. So there's two different kinds, right? So before we get into that, really important to understand that just because you get a certification, it doesn't guarantee a job. It doesn't guarantee a promotion. Don't expect it, right? It just shows that you have the initiative and that you're taking time out of your day or your week or your weekend in order to go and study for that particular certification and learn those new concepts on your own time. So there's two different kinds of certifications, and I heard both of them shouted out. So we have vendor neutral certifications. So those are going to focus on general concepts. And so like CompTIA is a really good example, not a specific vendor and not using their nomenclature. And then we have vendor specific certifications, which we also heard, and those are managed by a specific vendor, and they're going to use nomenclature specific to that vendor. So AWS, Google, Red Hat, Checkpoint, and you're going to be tested on vendor specific concepts on those exams. Okay, so some vendor neutral certifications. So we already heard Security Plus, right? I have Security Plus and Pentest Plus. So we heard some Security Plus out here. There's also ISC squared. So they have CISSP, which is the granddaddy, CCSP, which is the cloud version, So raise your hand if you think you need 5 years of experience to take CIS. Nope, you do not, right? You can go and you can take the test. And once you take the test and you pass, even if you don't have the 5 years experience, you're still a CISSP associate. And once you get those 5 years experience, word associate goes away. You can still take the test, you can still pass the test, and you can still put CISSP associate on your resume. You do not have to wait until you have 5 years of experience to take the test. ISACA, right? It's more auditor focused, but they have the CISA, Certified Information Systems Auditor, most boring and most difficult test I've ever taken in my life. Makes the OSCP look like a piece of cake. It put me to sleep, and I had to take it on paper. That's how old I am. So yeah, just be aware of that test. It's very boring. There's also CISM, Certified Information Security Manager, which they put out, and we'll talk a little bit more about these organizations in a little bit. And then there's SANS. So if you're in the military or your work has money to pay for it, go to SANS, right? Because they're like closer to 10 grand now, I think, depending on the course. Very, very expensive, but if somebody else is paying for it, you should totally go. Just know that after 3 years, it's going to expire unless you take another SANS certification, right? So you're talking 10 grand every 3 years in order to maintain this. And then offensive security, right? So OSCP, right? Valid, or I don't know if it's still valid for life, but it was valid for life.
It's 3 years OSCP plus.
And then it goes to regular.
Yes, and the regular is the valid.
Okay, cool. So yeah, because I heard about the plus thing, they're trying to get more money out of us now, so they're going after the government 8,500, blah blah blah. So that's why they've come out with all these different certifications ever since their new CEO took over a few years ago. They also bought VulnHub, right? So they can expand their proving grounds. But anyways, that's more of an after the top conversation. So vendor specific certifications, right? So if you're using a specific technology, you want to most likely get a vendor specific certification. So we heard AWS, there's also Google Cloud, there's another vendor which I won't mention because I'm not a fan. Cisco, right? Red Hat, VMware, all these guys and gals, Splunk, Elastic, IBM QRadar, CrowdStrike even has a certification. How many of you knew that Nessus has a certification? Right. So a lot of these vendors, they already have certifications. And a really, really good one that's free if you want to get into pen testing is the Burp Suite Portswigger Academy. Right. That is a free course that will give you a Burp certification, and it's excellent. Everybody that's taken it has raved about it, and from what I've seen, it's really, really good. And it teaches you how to use Burp, which is really, really important. All right, so skill building, perfect segue. So let's talk about labs. Okay, so before you start building your labs, it's important to define what your objective is, right? And this can change at any time. But before you start building it, you want to have an understanding of what you're going to do with it, because that is going to determine what goes into your lab, right? So are you trying to do pen testing? Are you trying to do forensics? Are you trying to do infrastructure administration, cloud, right? And then you want to select what type of lab that you want. So you can have a cloud lab. So if you sign up for one of the major cloud providers, they'll give you, I think it's like $200 or $300 worth of credit, and you can use that to do whatever you want. And then after that, they start charging. So you got a good amount of runway in order to do that in the cloud. And then you can also do a home lab, right? Home lab, you just need a bunch of old computers. You can slap Linux on them. Believe it or not, a lot of the stuff we do in security doesn't take a lot of horsepower unless you're doing password cracking or AI stuff. You could do a lot of this stuff on older machines. So just because something's running Windows 7, right, doesn't mean that it should be trash, right? Just slap Linux on there, put like Ubuntu or Slackware, that's how old I am, or something like that on there. And you'll be able to do a whole bunch of stuff. You can even get multiple computers and they'll be on the same network, right? Although we are in California, so electricity is like ridiculous. So just be careful with that. I have made that mistake and gotten a very large power bill. Luckily, I wasn't living with my parents anymore, so I didn't get yelled at. And then cloud labs, right? So you can do that in GCP, AWS, DigitalOcean, and then another vendor, which I have feelings. So you're doing your lab. Okay, great. What are you going to put in the lab? So virtual machines, containers, right? Those are great. A lot of different tools that we use to learn, they will give us containers or they will give us virtual machines that we can just load up into our environment. So who here has heard of the damn vulnerable projects? So one person. So if you want to learn about pen testing, there's something called the Damn Vulnerable projects, and they're not all made by the same person. And so they have things like Damn Vulnerable, or yeah, they have GCP Goat, which is Damn Vulnerable GCP. They have AWS Goat, which is Damn Vulnerable AWS. They have a vulnerable mobile application, which is called Damn Vulnerable Bank. They have Kubernetes Goat. They have ICS Goat, which just came out at this past Black Hat. So some guy, I forget his name, he wrote a lab that you can deploy in the cloud that mimics ICS, so you can learn how to do OT testing. There's also Damn Vulnerable API. There's Damn Vulnerable LLM. So whatever you want to learn about testing, whatever you want to learn how to test, most likely there's a vulnerable project for that will walk you through the top vulnerabilities that exist in that type of technology. There's also VulnHub, right, owned by Offensive Security now, but you could download vulnerable machines from there and test them. And then they also have walkthroughs, and that's fully local. You don't need well, you need an internet connection to download it, but you don't need an internet connection to actually do the practice. And then there's something called osboxes.org. How many of you know about osboxes.org? So osboxes.org is great, but somebody else is going to build the VM for you, and then you're going to download the appliance. Dangerous, right? Because we don't know what they're putting on there, right? But if we're not running production workloads and we're just doing this to learn, right? Okay, we could just download the appliance. Not saying you should do that every time, because it's good if you learn how to install Linux from scratch. Good skill to have. But you can download pre-built virtual machines from this website, any Linux distribution you want. And they come with pre-baked in credentials, so just sure to change those if you're going to do that. If you want to learn about firewalls, you want to learn about IDS, IPS, you can use Security Onion, which is basically open source Splunk now, because they have taken Snort and Suricata and they've put the Elk stack on top of it, and all kinds of visualizations. They use the Elastic Query language, which is basically just SQL or whatever you want with a fancy name. And so you can learn on that, right? So one of the labs that we do in one of my classes is I have my students, they'll set up Snort, and then they will, on that same network segment, they will run attacks, and then they will identify the alerts that are going across the wire so they can see how it actually works. Also setting up Active Directory, right? Really, really good, because a lot of pen testing now has Active Directory components. So much so that a few years ago, Offensive Security decided to go with the times and add Active Directory to their exam. It was really nice of them. And this doesn't need to be expensive. And one other thing on the Active Directory, Windows Server 2025 is about to come out, and they're going to have an ARM version. So that means that you can run Windows Server Core on a Raspberry Pi, and you can set up Active Directory or on any ARM device. Right? So that's going to open up a whole bunch of possibilities for building out labs. If anybody has a preview version, please tell me, I will pay. So I've been waiting for that to come out. Doesn't need to be expensive, as I mentioned, right? Just go around, get a bunch of old computers, slap Linux on them. There you go. Right? You can start doing different things with them. And it's also important that while you're doing this, that you break things, right? Don't expect to get it right on the first time, because there's a good chance that you won't. You're going to hit a wall. You're going to learn how to research, which is a really, really important skill. People are like, oh, how do you learn how to hack? How do you learn how to be a pen tester? 50% of the job, probably more, is Googling, right? You get stuck on something. It's like, okay, let me hit up my coworkers. Let me hit up my friends. Let me hit up Dr. Google, see what they have to say. But now we have, ChatGPT, which my friend's daughter calls Nemo for some reason. So we'll call it Nemo. So you're going to be breaking stuff as you're doing this, which is great, because then you're going to learn how to solve problems and experiment, right? If you want to figure out if something works or if something's possible, do it, right? It's what's the worst that can happen? You break your computer, great. You reinstall whatever you want. So Cloud Labs, as I mentioned, right, free tiers. So all the big vendors have free tiers. You can leverage Cloud Appliance images. That's the same thing as OS boxes. Somebody else is compiling it for you. Keep that in mind when you're doing that. So the Center for Internet Security, at least on GCP and AWS, I don't know about the other vendor because I try not to use them. They have pre-uploaded VMs that are hardened based on CIS bases. So you can go ahead and download those. If you want, they also just have vanilla OS images. I also mentioned previously AWS Goat, GCP Goat, and then the other Goat. So those are vulnerable environments so it's Terraform scripts. You run them and it'll spin up a vulnerable environment for you, and you can go through and you can test the environment, identify the vulnerabilities, and all of those have walkthroughs too in case you get stuck. It's also important to play around with security features in the cloud. So like IAM, super important in the cloud, because if you get hacked in the cloud, there's a good chance you have an identity problem. So yeah, learn how that works, learn how the firewalls work, because that's a really big thing. Whenever we're doing pen tests, whenever my team's doing pen tests, a lot of the stuff that we find is misconfigurations in the cloud, misconfigurations in the firewall, misconfigurations in IAM. So take advantage, go into the cloud, learn how to use these things, mess around, break things. That's how you learn. Okay, so now we talked about labs, we talked about certifications. Now we're going to talk about community involvement, near and dear to my heart. As I mentioned, a lot of cons. So community involvement, I'm not going to read this to you guys because, yeah, you guys already look tired. Community involvement, really important, right? Building relationships, I cannot emphasize how important it is. Right? Before I started in consulting, I could not talk to a tree. Then I went into consulting, they threw me out there and they're like, no, you have no choice. Now I can talk to whoever, right? I can talk to the trees. So there's a bunch of different things that we can do. Oh, sorry. Bunch of different things we can do, which we'll get into. So local meetup groups, right? So we're in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, it's a lot. Security conferences. So round of applause to you guys for showing up here. Already like amazing that you're showing up here. Twitter and now Mastodon and Blue Sky, right? So make sure that you're following people. If you need to know who to follow, let me know. I can show you my list. Also Reddit, also a cesspool, but there's good stuff on there. So the crypto subreddit is not for cryptocurrency. It is for cryptography. Okay, so don't go on there looking for the next meme coin, because you're not going to find it. NetSec students, right? So that's where you can ask like more basic questions, and people will not blame you because it's the internet. People are mean, as we know, but some people are nice. The nice people are all here. And then content creation, right? So raise your hand if you create content. Okay, 2 people, 3 people. All right, so on the last slide, I'm going to show you something really easy that you can do that I do every month, and that's gotten me a lot of traction. And it's really easy, and it's based on this. Okay, so talking to humans. So before we do that, please introduce yourself to your neighbor. I'll give you guys 1 minute. In the back. It's only been like 15 seconds. Where are you from? What do you do? Why are you here?
Been on my to-do list for like 3 years.
So that's the answer. Like questions and answers right now. Just you.
Oh no, there's more slides.
Oh, okay.
Way more slides. Yeah, but introduce yourself to your neighbors, because this could be your next employee, your next boss, your next best friend. That's why we're all here. All right. Hopefully we've made new friends. That we're gonna. By the way, is there like an after party or something? So I didn't see any bars around. So perfect, love it. Where's the cat at? Okay. So community involvement, very important. So congratulations on making new friends. So elevator pitch and talking to humans, really hard. I know it's difficult to talk to people. Really hard. I know. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. So an elevator pitch, really important. You should always have your elevator pitch in your back pocket, and you should be practicing it in front of the mirror. If you want to use a comb like they do in the movies, you can do that. So I'll give you mine. So my name is Nico. I'm a red team manager at a technology company and an adjunct professor. I've been working in security for over 10 years as a consultant and now work in-house. No longer true. I'm interested in learning about new TTPs and regularly attend local meetups and conferences. Okay, so that's my elevator pitch. If I meet somebody, I can regurgitate that pretty easily. So everybody should have their elevator pitch. So when you go home tonight, homework, do your elevator pitch, practice in front of the mirror. have it ready, right? Because you never know when you're going to meet somebody. So how do you actually, okay, you're at the con, you're walking around, how do you like start talking to people? So a few examples, right? So I've been different continents, I go by myself, and these are the lines that I use. So hi, my name is Nico. Can I sit with you? Works every time, right? They'll be like, yeah, sure, sit with us. Another one that works every time. That's a cool badge. Where'd you get it? Did you make it yourself? Oh, tell me more about those lights. What do they do? Right? People love that. What did you think of the talk? Right? Really easy. And then they're gonna be like, oh, I thought it was great. Blah blah blah. What did you think? And then you're gonna say, oh, blah blah blah. Next thing you know, guys are raging, gals are raging, having a good time, making memories. But most important, you have to be positive, right? Because anybody can show up and bitch. I love to bitch, but there's not the time, right? When you're meeting people, like if we have extra time, I'll bitch, but be positive when you're meeting people because people don't want to hang out with somebody that's going to bitch, right? As fun as it is, right? If we want to have a bitch sesh, we can do it after. I'm more than happy to do it. Dedicated area, dedicated drinks. Okay, so local meetup groups. So you guys probably have a lot more up here than we do down in San Diego. But these are the ones we have. So, and I'm sure you guys have all of these up here too. So OWASP, right? I'm one of the chapter leaders for OWASP San Diego. So we're looking for January speakers, if anybody's interested. Also DEF CON Local, right? So they meet once a month. IC Squared also meet once a month. ISACA, same thing, once a month. Or Women in Cybersecurity, the group we have in San Diego, amazing, right? I'm sure it's the same up here. Cloud Security Alliance, another great one. 2600. And so one of the things that I do, or that I started doing, that I've been trying to get other people to do, but nobody's done it yet, except for my friend who does it in OC and LA. Start a mixer. Okay, so all these groups so we came out of the pandemic, these groups were not meeting, or they were meeting and there were like 2 people showing up. So I emailed all the heads of all the groups and I said, yo, we have to make a joint mixer so people can know about the different groups and start showing up. So now I organize it once a quarter, all these different groups. I literally get their logos and I just go into like Microsoft Paint, super ghetto, put all the logos on one thing with the date and the time, right? And the place. And then I send it to all of them and they're like, wow, this is great. Thanks for doing this. And I'm like, yeah, it took me 5 minutes. Let's get drunk. So then you put it on Meetup or wherever, and then all the different groups are advertising, hey, all the different cybersecurity groups are going to be here this day, this time, right? And so now we constantly every quarter have over 100 people showing up. Really easy to do, right? Please, somebody go out and do this for the Bay Area, right? It's big. It's twice as big as San Diego, probably 3 times as big. So you can even have like South Bay meetup, San Francisco mixer, whatever, right? Plenty of opportunity up here to do this. Maybe even like a all Bay Area mixer, right? So opportunity for somebody who wants to do this. It's going to really elevate you in the local community. Everybody's going to know you. You can call people and be like, hey, I saw so-and-so's hiring here. You know them. Can you please refer me? And they'll be like, sure, right? But you have to get out there and you have to get engaged. So job search strategies, building relationships, really, really important, as I mentioned. So you want to tailor your job, you want to tailor your resume to the job that you're applying for, right? So I'm guilty, right? My resume is like super pen test focused, but I've applied for non-pen testing jobs with a pen testing focused resume. How many of you think I got a call back or an email? I did get an email and it was a rejection. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're tailoring your resume, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Show up for things in person, right? We're all here. We're all doing that. Good. All right. So earlier you introduced yourself to your neighbor. Now, all right, let's take 15 seconds. Shake your neighbor's hand, right? Handshake, super important, right? You're not trying to break anyone's hand, but you want to be firm and you want to look them in the eye. All right, 15 seconds.
Yes.
What? Wrap it up.
Yeah, like not now, but
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. All right, so we need to move things along here. So update your LinkedIn. Make sure that your LinkedIn has a profile picture. Super important, right? Because if not, they're going to think you're a spammer. Make sure your LinkedIn has a good picture. You don't have to be wearing a suit. I'm wearing a suit, but you don't have to be wearing a suit. You can be wearing a t-shirt, whatever you want. Just make it professional. Um, yeah, for looking for jobs, Indeed, LinkedIn, Dice, and then the career sites of the companies that you want to work for, right? You go directly to the website and you check. It's also really important to leverage your LinkedIn network. So how many of you know the difference between a first degree and a second degree connection? Okay, so some of you. So if you're on LinkedIn, which you should be, if you're connected to somebody, that is a first degree connection. So I know that person. Now, let's say that person is connected to somebody else that I'm not connected to. That's a second degree connection. So let's say that this gentleman seated here, let's just say he's connected to somebody that works at Google, right? And I want a job at Google. So I can hit him up and be like, hey, I noticed you're connected with so-and-so who works at Google. Do you know them well enough to ask them to refer me for this job? FYI, they will get paid and I will take you out for dinner if I get hired, right? Because it's all a game at the end of the day. If these people refer you and you get hired, they get paid and you get a new job. So everybody wins, right? So you have to understand that, and you have, one second. They're telling me to wrap it up so I can get to your question afterwards. Yeah. Yeah. So LinkedIn is super, super important, right? Another place where you can get referrals, like out of the blue. How many of you have heard of Blind or Fishbowl? Yeah. Blind or Fishbowl, those apps, right? And they're like the anonymous talk apps, even though it's not anonymous. So you can go on there and you can say, hey, I'm looking for a referral at X company. Like I said, people get paid. So they're going to be like, oh, I'll refer you sometimes. And then next thing you know, you got a referral. If you get hired, right, you got a new job and that person gets paid, right? It's a win-win situation. Okay, ChatGPT, really important. So this is the prompt that I used when I was looking for a job. But I tailor it. The bold parts are my emphasis. So I tailor it to each job description. So I'm applying for a job at a large bank and I need help tailoring my resume to better align to the job description. I'm an experienced OffSec consultant currently working as a red team manager at a tech company. The role I'm applying for is a security manager role specializing in red teaming and OffSec. I'm going to feed you the job description, then feed you my resume. After you have received my resume and the job description, I would like you to tweak the bullet points in my resume to match the job description. Please describe the changes along with the rationale at the end. And you must ask it if it understands, because you don't want it to get to work and then it does the wrong thing. So then it'll confirm what it's going to do. So it's going to say, yes, I understand. Please provide the job description first, and then your resume, and I'll help you tailor it. So thank you for providing the job description. Now please provide your resume so I can help you tailor it to better align. Great. So here's the results. Okay, engagement, coordination, and reporting. The job description emphasizes that you need to coordinate engagements and communicate findings. Your role at Box.com already involves this, so I highlighted it. Historical learnings, adherence, right? So it's going to tell me what it changed and why. Really important. And you can do this for each job, right? And then you can tell it, oh, no, I don't like that bullet. Change it. Or change this word, change that word, and it'll do it. Yeah. So next steps. One other thing I want to mention is, how many of you speak a different language? Raise your hand. Okay. So how many of you have looked into conferences in those languages? How many of you have attended conferences in those languages? Okay, you should all do that if you can, right? Because there's a whole different world out there. Most of the cons I've gone to this year have been in Spanish. So I've been to Colombia, I've been to Mexico, Argentina, right? Get out there, meet different people, especially if you speak another language. There's YouTubers, there's podcasters, there's conferences, and you can also create content in those languages. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that I would share a piece of content that I make every month with you. So every month, I'll make a list of all the meetups that are happening in my city, San Diego, America's finest city, and I will post it on LinkedIn with links. Okay, and so like that, people can go to, they know when the events are, they know where they are, they click on the links, and then they follow you, and then whenever you're looking for a job or you're doing something, this is outdated, it's from last month, but it's the same thing. You can do this every month for your city. You post it on whatever, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. Really important that you tag as many things as possible. So all the things in bold are things that I have tagged. And then if anybody is giving a talk, you tag them as well, because then you get more exposure. Yeah, so you get more exposure. So that's my talk. Another shameless plug. So if any of you are Spanish speakers and you're going to DEF CON next year, please come to La Villa. So we are a new DEF CON community where talks are exclusively in Spanish and Portuguese. I also have holographic stickers if you would like them. So come see me after if you want one of these. And other than that, I'll be around if you guys have questions, and thanks for listening.